Thomas Jefferson once said, "We prefer dreams of the future to the history of the past, but history and the past are not synonymous, as the past is what happened, whereas history is only what was written down by the last man standing." In a book called The Kingdoms of Quivira and Anion, its near neighbor as located on the maps of Western America, it states that neither Quivira and Anion had no more existence in reality than had Thor's Valhalla or the abode of the Olympian gods. The mainstream archaeologists have placed Quivira in central Kansas along the Great Bend of the Arkansas River. My concerns with this placement is that it does not align with the words of the Spanish as they entered North America. Also, early maps seem to indicate that Quivira was on the west coast and traditionally near the Sierra Nevada mountains. Also, Mendocino seems to be placed nearby as well. Welcome back to In Search of Tontonteac. The origin of the term Quivira is widely debated. Some believe it was a Spanish misinterpretation of an Indian place name. Others believe that the name has its roots in Arabic, like so many geographical place names back in Spain. In this case, the Arabic word Quivir signifies great, as in the name of the large river flowing through Seville called Guadalquivir. There is another explanation for the origin of the name Quivira from Coronado himself. The motto of the Coronado expedition was Quien vivera, vera, meaning in English, "He who lives will see." Coronado's men shortened that phrase to Quien vivera and then to Qui vivera. Ultimately, this became simply Quivira. An old Spanish legend about 7 fantastically rich cities led Coronado, then governor of New Galicia in northern Mexico, to an exploration of the heartland of America. Adolphe Bandelier points out in The Gilded Man that the story of 7 rich cities in an unknown land was told long before Columbus discovered America. This legend and the one of Quivira rank with the illusions of the hidden treasure of the Moors of Granada in the Alhambra. In 711 AD, the Moors invaded the Iberian Peninsula from North Africa and called the territory Al-Andalus, which at its peak included most of modern-day Spain, Portugal, and Septimania, waging centuries of war with the rest of Europe until the 1492 fall of Granada that ended what historians call the Reconquista. But by 1249, Portugal had already established itself as an independent kingdom. Prince Henry, the Navigator, 1394 to 1460 AD, the third child of Portugal's King John Prime, took the leading role in the establishment of a far-flung Portuguese overseas empire and coordinated the systematic exploration of West Africa and the Atlantic. As early as 1424, Portuguese explorers reported to Prince Henry that they had discovered a strange island west of the Portuguese mainland, which was designated as Antillia, but more commonly known as the Isle of the 7 Bishops, or the Isle of 7 Cities. A 1492 globe made by cartographer Martinho da Bohemia for Portugal's King John II includes the Isle of the 7 Cities, and a more detailed explanation that reads, "In the year 734 of Christ, when the whole of Spain had been won by the heathen Moors of Africa, the above island Antillia, called Septicitade, 7 cities, was inhabited by an archbishop from the Porto in Portugal, with 6 other bishops and other Christians, men and women, who had fled thither from Spain by ship, together with their cattle, belongings, and goods. In 1414, a ship from Spain got nighest it without being endangered." Were the Spanish and the other cartographers working off of previously sourced maps which potentially had these land features and towns already on them? In a book entitled Some Imaginary California Geography by Henry R. Wagner in 1929, it says, "This gentleman told a long story about Russia and the way to the spice countries of the East, and wound up by stating that he had seen a letter from the Viceroy Antonio de Mendoza, written in 1541, the substance of which he related. Richard Eden appended to his translation of the Decades of the New World, published in London in 1555, a translation of this story. Speaking of the effort to discover the land and countries of Cathay, the gentleman said, "This is written in Old English, so the verbiage is a little off. The which things that right worthy gentleman Master Antony de Mendoza, considering by the singular virtue and magnanimity that is in him, attempted to put this thing in practice. For being Viceroy of the country of Mexico, so named of the great city Mexico, otherwise called Temistitan, Nawe called New Spain, being in the Dexcents, 20th degree about the equinoctial, and part of the Said Firm Land, he sent certain of his capitains by land, and also a naui of ships by sea, to search this secret. And I remember that when I was in Flown, Dares in the Emperor's court, I saw his letter written in the year .1541, and dated from Mexico, wherein was declared how, toward the northwest, he had found the kingdom of Setesita, that is, Solon cities, whereas is that called Ciuola by the Roweran father Marco de Niza, and how Biciande the say de Kingdom yet further toward the northwest, Capitain Francesco Vasques of Coronado, howinga o'er past great deserts, came to the seaside where he found certain shippies which sailed by that sea with March Eundies, and had in their banner upon the prows of their shippies certain fowles made of gold and silver, which they of Mexico call alcatrazi, and that their mariners shewed by signs that they were wachichimi mezisamichindi. 30 days sailing in Caminge to that Howen, whereby he understood that these shippies could be of none other country than of Cathay, forasmuch as it is situate on the contrary part of the Said Landa discovered. The Said Master Antonio wrote furthermore, that by the opinion of men well practiced, there was discovered so great a space of that country vanto the said sea, that it passed .950 leagues, which make .2850 miles. And doubtless, ye if the Frenchmen in this there knew of France wolde how passed by land toward the Said northwest, and by north they should also how found the sea, whereby they might how sail to Cathay. But about all things this seemed unto me most worthy of commendation, that the Said Master Antony wrote in his letter that he had made a book of all the natural and maruelaus things which they found in searching those countries, with also the measures of landes and altitudes of degrees, a work doubtless which sheweth a princely and magnifical mind, whereby we may consel that if God had given him the charge of the other hemisphere, he wold or know we how he made it. Better known to verses, the which things I suppose no man doth greatly esteem at this time, being newer, the less, the greatest and most glorious enterprise that may be imagined. I highly doubt that Kansas was in trade with Cathay or China. As an African proverb wisely observes, until lions have their historians, tales of the hunt shall always glorify the hunters.